13 animals that can live after death. Being able to function after death seems like something that belongs in horror movies and the realms of fiction. Well, in today's video, we will show you real-life examples of this happening within the animal kingdom. From headless chickens to creatures that can completely regenerate themselves, here is a list of creatures that can live after death. Before we get started, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way, you will never miss one of our unbelievable animal fact videos. 13. Snakes. Chopping a snake's head off might sound like a surefire way to kill it, but it might come as a shock to discover it can still bite and inject its venom. This is because snakes detect heat signatures to hunt and have evolved to reactively strike at anything it considers prey, even hours after decapitation. The venom sacs are found in its head, which means that it can still have deadly consequences depending on the species. 12. Chickens. Have you ever heard the expression running around like a headless chicken and wondered if there was any actual truth behind it? Well, as a matter of fact, it is completely true. Some basic bodily functions of the chicken are not controlled by the brain itself and instead by certain parts of the brain stem. If a butcher or a farmer were to chop a chicken's head too high, it would only take the forebrain off, leaving the stem and the cerebellum intact. In fact, if the butcher also misses the jugular, then the chicken would continue to breathe and move. Eventually, it would starve to death, though there was one occasion where a chicken called Miracle Mike lived 18 months without its head due to its owners feeding it through the throat. 11. Backwards aging jellyfish. According to National Geographic, Oriella aurita is a jellyfish that can cheat death by reversing its aging process. If the jellyfish gets injured or sick, it returns to its polyp stage over a 3-day period. This means it changes its cells back to a younger state and grows into adulthood all over again. I think there are many of us that wish we had this little tick. 10. Radiation-resistant bacterium. Deinococcus radiodurans is a polyextremophilic bacterium. They are radiation-resistant and can also come back to life after death thanks to its incredible DNA repairing process. They can survive extremely cold conditions, dehydration, and acids. What is more impressive is that it can resist 1.5 million rads of gamma radiation, which is about 3,000 times the amount that would kill a human. They are so tough that they earned the title of the world's toughest bacterium in the Guinness Book of Records. 9. Turtles. Certain fish, reptiles, birds, and mammals have cells that are similar to the human pacemaker, meaning that when the signals are cut off from the brainstem, the heart can continue to function for a while, even though the brain activity has stopped. Turtles are a prime example of this. What is also amazing is that turtles can dive into the water for a very long period of time. In the case of the loggerhead sea turtle, they can stay submerged for as long as 5,000 hours. The reason they can do this is because their bodies can draw in small amounts of oxygen from the water. 8. Cockroaches. Cockroaches are probably the creature you expected to see on this list, as they are famously known to survive nuclear radiation. But did you know that they can live without a head? In fact, the cockroach can live without a head for weeks. The reason for this is because it has an open circulatory system, which means it has no blood pressure. If the head was lopped off, the blood would clot almost instantly. With humans, we need the brain connected to the body to regulate its functions. Not to mention the fact that we depend on our heads to breathe, eat, and drink. In the case of the cockroach, they don't need their heads to breathe, as they have little holes all over their bodies that allow them to take in oxygen. Ultimately, they would die due to starvation, but this would take weeks to happen. 7. Bees. Saying bees can live on after death may sound like a bit of a stretch, but they can certainly sting you. Obviously, that doesn't mean there are zombie bees flying around ready to attack, but that the venom delivery system will still be fully functioning, even if the bee is long dead. When a bee stings, the stinger detaches its body, which leaves it embedded into the skin of the victim. Attached to the stinger is a tiny organ that contains both venom and a tiny muscle that pumps the venom out. This detached part of the bee is controlled by an involuntary impulse rather than the brain, meaning that if it's not severely decomposed, it is ready to activate. 6. Octopus. When an octopus is chopped up into pieces, its 8 arms will continue to move. Therefore, it becomes a deadly delicacy, as they can continue to wriggle and even suck onto the throat, resulting in choking. The reason why the arms continue moving is because its central nervous system is extremely unique. 3/4 of an octopus's nerve cells are found in its tentacles and not the brain. This means that their arms continue reacting even if they are no longer connected to the brain. 5. Salamander. The salamander is a stubborn animal that will not allow injury or age to get in the way of living. The animal has always been synonymous with long life and immortality, and even believed to be the product of magic in some cultures due to its regenerative skills. Salamanders can quite literally regrow a body part if it was to be torn off or severely injured. This is because of the special proteins found in its body that regenerates its cells. In fact, the regrown limb acts just the same as the former one did. Scientists are continuously studying these little creatures in hopes that one day we can replicate the effects on human amputees. 4. Frogs. It has been discovered that frogs can continue to move around even after brain activity has ceased. In the 19th century, neurologist David Ferrariel conducted experiments where he removed the whole brain of a frog. He found that it not only continued to move, but also discovered it would flip itself back up when tipped onto its back. 3. Flies. Flies have evolved to survive freezing temperatures, being able to put themselves into a form of suspended animation. Experiments have been conducted where a fly has been frozen for long periods of time, only to be defrosted and returned to its former state. Female flies also have the strange ability to live for several days after being decapitated. They can still fly and walk as they usually would, only like many creatures mentioned on this list, would eventually die of starvation. 2. Flatworms. These wriggly creatures, also known as planarian worms, are known for their bizarre regenerative ability. In fact, if you were to cut one of the worms down the middle, both halves would begin repairing themselves, creating 2 separate worms. This apparently limitless regeneration also applies to age and damaged tissue, allowing the worm to revive itself after death. 1. Tardigrade. The tardigrade is an 8-legged microanimal that lives in water. Despite its size, these creatures are capable of living for thousands of years once they enter a state of cryptobiosis, where its metabolism stops. Also, these sturdy little creatures are very difficult to kill, as they are resistant to extreme temperatures, extreme pressures, oxygen deprivation, radiation, dehydration, and starvation. Which death-cheating animal was your favorite? We would love to know in the comment section below. And unlike the creatures mentioned in today's video, our pets aren't so lucky when it comes to mortality. Therefore, we need to give them the very best of care. In the description box below, we will leave links to our partner sites who provide a whole array of products and guides to keep our companions healthy and happy. If you would like to see more interesting animal videos like this one, be sure to check out our other videos, and don't forget to hit the subscribe and notification buttons so you never miss a future upload.